Greetings and welcome to the lesson. Today we continue with the subject governance and compliance audit. The topic is conduct of governance and compliance audit. This is a new topic, and this topic has 12 subtopics. 1 is inception meeting. Number 2, reviewing the compliance, governance and internal control systems. 3, group governance and compliance audits. 4, assessing compliance with the Constitution, applicable laws, rules, regulations, international treaties, international agreements, codes of conduct and internal policies. 5, coordination in the conduct of governance and compliance audit. Number 6, role of in-house corporate secretary, internal auditor, external auditor, legal auditor, audit committee, regulatory oversight bodies and other governance assurance functions. Subtopic number 7 is a process of governance and compliance audit. Number 8, the governance and compliance audit cycle. 9, governance and compliance audit tools. 10, use of technology. 11, scoring methodology. And lastly, data analysis. These are 12 subtopics. The topic is conduct of governance and compliance audit. Conduct of governance and compliance audit. The first subtopic is inception meeting. And candidates, this is a meeting between the audit team on one side and the client organization on the other. Because in an engagement, in a governance and compliance audit engagement, those are the two major parties. The company that is being audited and the audit team. So before conducting the governance and compliance audit, the two parties have to have a meeting we are calling an inception meeting. And this meeting is for clarification or understanding of key contact persons. That is on both sides. We have the key contact persons on the client organization, and also the key contact person from the side of the audit team. Another purpose for having this meeting is understanding the scope. Both parties must agree on the scope of the audit. There is also a clarification that may be required on the process, the timelines, the schedule of the governance and audit, governance and compliance audit, the logistics, the operating environment, and also areas of emphasis. These two parties have to have the inception meeting, which is also sometimes known as the kick-off meeting. It is a crucial initial step in the conduct of a governance and compliance audit because it sets the foundation for collaborative and efficient audit process by ensuring mutual understanding between the audit team and the client organization. And this meeting is typically held after the formal engagement letter has been signed, but before detailed fieldwork commences. Do you understand, candidates? Inception meeting. The purpose of the inception meeting is to align expectations, is to clarify responsibilities and to establish clear communication channels to facilitate a smooth audit engagement. And it's about ensuring that both parties are on the same page regarding the what, regarding the who, and regarding the how the audit is to be conducted. So in this lesson, we're going to just analyze some of the key aspects of for clarification and understanding. Because it said this is a meeting of these two parties. So what are the aspects of clarification and understanding? What should these parties agree on? Or what clarifications may be sought by either of the parties? So during the inception meeting, there are various areas that are discussed and clarified. areas. What areas are discussed? Or what are the aspects? So we want to discuss the areas that may require clarification in the conduct of governance and compliance. One is just introduction to key contact persons. One, introduction, contact persons. Introduction to key contact persons or teams. Introduction to key contact persons or teams. And this could be the audit team, the organization that is being audited has to know the persons within the audit team, because before the engagement commences, before the audit engagement commences, it's important that the company knows the people who will be coming to carry out the audit. Like the lead auditor must be known to the company, and the lead auditor may, within that meeting, introduce the audit engagement team members, outlining their roles, their responsibilities. Like we may have the engagement partner, the audit manager, the audit seniors, and also the audit staff. They have to be introduced to the company, because these are the individuals who will be visiting the company, so that when the engagement begins, you don't need to carry out introductions again. So that is introduction to key contact persons. You understand? Then you have the client. In an engagement, in an audit engagement, these are the two major parties. The audit, the company that is being audited, sometimes is referred to as the auditee company. Then you have the audit team. So we have apart from the audit team, there is the client team. Here the client introduces their key stakeholders and points of contact who will be involved in the audit. For example, we may have the chief compliance officer, the legal counsel. We may have the head of the internal audit department, the departmental managers, the IT leads, and so on. So those are the members who will be interacting with the audit team. When you're carrying out audit work, then you may need to interact with the chief compliance officer, the lawyers, the company lawyers, the head of the internal audit department, the departmental heads, those dealing with the IT department, the head of IT department. So that's the client team that may be introduced in the inception meeting before the auditor begins his audit work, before the auditor begins the governance and compliance audit. Before he moves to the field, the auditor has to have a meeting with the client team. They have that first meeting. So the members are introduced. Then there is communication. Communication. In this meeting, the two parties establish who the primary contact persons are for different types of inquiries. For example, you may have the technical compliance questions. The auditor may have data requests for data. There could be scheduling. So this kind of communication matrix streamlines communication and avoids confusion. So after introducing the members of the audit team and the members of the client, there has to be the communication matrix where it is established who will be providing information on legal compliance, information on IT, will be providing information on technical compliance questions, who will be requesting data and who will be providing data and so on. So that's the first key area of the Inception meeting. Introduction to key contact persons and teams. Another area that may require clarification in an Inception meeting is the scope of the audit. Scope of the audit will include the confirmation of objectives, confirmation of objectives. Here, reiteration and confirmation of the specific objectives of the governance and compliance audit is done. For example, assessing adherence to data protection laws, evaluating the effectiveness of the anti-money laundering programs. That's an objective. Okay? Reviewing board oversight effectiveness, and so on. So the scope may include confirmation of objectives. In that meeting, the objectives are confirmed. What is the purpose of the governance and compliance audit? You understand? So that's the first part of the scope. The scope may also include boundaries and exclusions. In the Inception meeting, boundaries have to be drawn. What will be done and what will not be done during the governance and compliance audit. In this meeting, it is clearly defined what is included and what is excluded from the audit scope, because that then prevents what we call scope creep. It prevents scope creep and ensures the client understands the limits of the audit. For example, is a specific business unit excluded if the company has subsidiaries or it has branches? Which branches will be included in the process of carrying out governance and compliance audit? Is a specific branch excluded? Is a particular regulatory framework out of the scope for this particular audit? So that has to be drawn, exclusions and boundaries. Now, as part of the scope of audit, there is also the period. Period can also define scope. Period of audit. It has to be defined under scope of audit. When this meeting is held, the parties must agree on the period of audit. Here, confirmation of the specific time period or as of date the audit will cover. For example, it could be compliance activities from 1st of January 2024 to 31st of December 2024. The period has to be agreed upon during the Inception meeting. And methodology. During the Inception meeting, the parties again must confirm the audit process and methodology. What will be the audit approach, for example? Audit approach is discussed and agreed upon. The audit approach. In this meeting, the auditor should briefly explain the methodology the audit team intends to use. Is it a risk-based approach? Is it detailed testing? Is it control effectiveness testing? Will it include interviews or document reviews or data analytics? What will be the approach? That has to be specified during this meeting. The auditor has to specifically tell the client that this is the approach that we are going to use while conducting the governance and compliance audit. So we have audit approach, that is number one, under audit process and methodology. Then number two, we have the phases of the audit. Will the audit be carried out in phases? If yes, then the auditor has to outline the main phases of the audit. For example, planning phase, fieldwork phase, reporting phase, follow-up phase, and what each phase entails. The auditor has to explain what each phase entails. If it is a planning phase, the auditor has to clarify to the client that this is what the planning phase entails. Deliverables, very important. Deliverables. Here, there has to be confirmation of the expected deliverables, such as interim reports. At the end of the audit, what should the client expect? They have to agree on what is expected at the end of the audit. Is it an audit report? Is it an internal interim report, or is it draft findings or management letters or the final audit report? The deliverables have to be agreed upon during the inception meeting. Then 4, under audit process and methodology, there is expectations for client participation. Expectation for client participation. Expectations. Clarify the level and type of involvement expected from the client's team. For example, who will provide documentation, who will participate in interviews, who will review the draft findings, and so on. The auditor should ask the client to state within the meeting, the inception meeting, what the auditor expects from the client. What will be the participation of the client? That has to come out very clearly within the inception meeting. Expectations for client expectations. Expectations for client participation. Then number 4, we have timelines and schedule. Schedule. Timelines and schedule are their key milestones that are expected during the audit. The auditor should present a high-level timeline with key milestones. For example, start of field work. That is a milestone. They start when the field work begins. It's a milestone. The date of initial findings discussion. The date for initial findings discussion is another timeline, another key milestone. The target date for draft report is a key milestone. The final report issuance is a key milestone. So there has to be these milestones that they also that are accompanied with the dates. When is the final report issuance expected? When is the target date for, what is the target date for draft report? So those are also very important aspects that should come out during the inception meeting. That is the meeting of the audit team and the client team. 2 is information request deadlines. Information request deadlines. Communicate expected deadlines for providing the requested documentation and data. Expected deadlines. The client team should inform the audit team the audit team should inform the client team when information that is requested is to be submitted, the deadline for that information. Emphasize the impact of delays on the overall schedule. The auditor should emphasize the impact of delay. There ought to be no delays, because if there are delays, then some of these key milestones may not be achieved. Then there is meeting schedule. Meeting schedule as part of the 4th point. Meeting schedule. The 2 parties should discuss and tentatively schedule recurring meetings. For example, weekly check-ins, progress updates, and so on. So that's the 4th key area. Timelines and schedule. Number 5 is logistics. Logistics must be discussed in this meeting. Logistics. We may have, for example, on-site or remote work. On-site vis-a-vis remote work. Will the audit be done on-site or will the work be done remotely? Clarify whether the audit will be conducted primarily on-site or remotely or a hybrid approach. That has to be discussed within the inception meeting. During that meeting, the two parties should agree on the logistics, like the workspace. Part of logistics, you have the workspace. If it is on-site, what will be the space that the auditor will be provided in the process of carrying out his work? If on-site, we discuss requirements for workspace, internet access, and also other facilities that the audit may require. System access has to be discussed during inception meeting. System access. Detail any necessary access to client systems, applications, or databases that the audit team will require. Then discuss security protocols around this access. 4. Data provision. Provision of data. Provision of data. Data provision. Clarify the preferred format for data and document provision. For example, is it secure file transfers or SharePoint access or physical copies? The auditor should clarify in what format the information that is requesting is to be provided. Number 6, operating environment. Operating environment and culture. Operating environment and culture. Operating environment and culture. For example, you may have a business overview, which should be discussed. Business overview can also be an area that is discussed during this inception meeting. The auditor should gain a deep understanding of the client's business operations, the strategic objectives, and also organizational structure. This can also be part of what is discussed in an inception meeting between the audit team and the client team. Business overview. There is also compliance culture. What is the compliance culture? The culture of compliance. Compliance culture. Discuss the client's current compliance culture. Are there any recent challenges or areas of particular concern for management? Does the management have any challenge in complying with the laws and regulations? So that has to be discussed during the inception meeting between the audit team and the client team. Understanding the operating environment and also the culture. What is the culture of compliance of this company? Then the 4th point, apart from this, that's the third, because this is just B. You have A, B, business overview, then compliance culture. You may also have key risks and challenges. Key risks and challenges. Let me write it here. What are the key risks and challenges that the organization is facing in governance and compliance areas? Inquire about any recent significant changes in the operating environment, in the regulatory landscape, or even organizational structure that might impact the governance and compliance. Then we have sensitivities. Sensitivities. Sensitivities is also part of understanding operating environment and culture. Sensitivities. What do we mean by sensitivities? Sensitivities, candidates, here we are referring to, or it means understanding any political sensitivities. It may refer to political sensitivities or ongoing investigations or other delicate issues that the audit team should be aware of while carrying out governance and compliance audit. That's what we mean by sensitivities. 7 is areas of emphasis. Areas of emphasis. The two parties should discuss areas of emphasis, like client priorities. The client may have priorities. The client may have priorities which the auditor may not be aware of. That's why they need to have an inception meeting where the auditor understands or is told the client priorities. In this meeting, the auditor should allow the client to highlight any specific governance or compliance areas they want the auditor to pay particular attention to, even if they are already within the scope. The scope may be there of the audit, as we discussed here, but what is the priority of the client? The auditor may not know unless the client explains. And the client cannot explain unless there is an inception meeting. That's why we have an inception meeting, so that the client can explain to the auditor its priorities. You understand? This could be due to recent incidents. The client priorities could also be due to new regulatory focus or just internal concerns. 2, we have auditors' initial risk assessment. That can be discussed also, the auditor's initial risk assessment. The auditor may present their initial understanding of the potential risk areas based on their preliminary planning, seeking client input and also validation. 3, past audit findings. Past audit findings is also and may also be an area that may be discussed under point number 7, past audit findings. The two should discuss any prior audit findings. It could be the internal audit or external audit related to governance and compliance, and the status of corrective actions. And the status of what? Corrective actions. So candidates, these are the key areas that may be discussed between the audit team and the client team during the inception meeting, which is also known as the kickoff meeting, which is a crucial step in the conduct of a governance and compliance audit, because this inception meeting sets the foundation for a collaborative and efficient audit process. In this, we've identified 7 key areas. 1 is introduction to key contact persons and teams. Number 2 is scope of audit. The two must agree and discuss on the scope of audit, which include the confirmation of objectives, the boundaries and exclusions, the period of audit. All right. Then the third area is audit process and methodology, which include the audit approach, the phases of the audit, deliverables, expectations for client participation. Number 4, we have the timelines and schedule, where key milestones are discussed. Information request deadlines are also discussed. Then meeting schedule. The 5th area is logistics, which include online versus remote work. How will the audit work be conducted? Will it be conducted on the client's premises or remotely, or will there be a kind of a hybrid? Then there is also workspace. If the audit will be carried out, what is the workspace of the client? Does the client have access to internet? Is the space adequate enough to cover or to enable the auditor to carry out his function? There is also system access and data provision. The 6th area is operating environment and culture. Within this meeting, the auditor gets to understand the overview, the business overview. He gets to understand more about the company. Then there is also compliance culture. What is the compliance culture? Does the company have a history of complying, or has the company had any difficulties in complying with laws, regulations, and rules? Then there is also key risks and challenges and sensitivities which ought to be discussed during the meeting. Then the last key area is areas of emphasis. It's important that the auditor understands, for example, the client priorities. The auditor should allow the client to highlight any specific governance or compliance areas that they want the auditor to pay particular attention to. Then there is also the auditor's initial risk assessment. The auditor can now, in this meeting, explain to the client the findings of his or her initial risk assessment. Then there is also past audit findings. So these are key areas that may be discussed during the meeting. 7 areas. And that is the end of our today's lesson on Inception meeting. Thank you for attending the lesson. We will, in our next lesson, move to reviewing of compliance, governance, and internal control systems as the second topic under the conduct of governance and compliance audit. Bye-bye.